A former vice premier has been released on bail for a second time in a corruption probe that's become a tug-of-war between prosecutors and the courts. Taiwan's military gears up for its largest annual exercises, and troops will be tested on their ability to make real-time decisions on the battlefield. Police are on a hunt for a shooter who killed the father of an elected official in southern Taiwan, and some suspect a political motive. Plus, President Lai travels south to Kaohsiung, handing Team Taiwan a flag they'll take to Paris for this year's Olympic Games.
大家的表现也是为国人所关注，凝聚国家团结的力量。
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Taiwan's former Vice Premier Cheng Wen-tsan has been re-granted bail. The DPP politician was seen leaving a district court this afternoon amid an ongoing corruption probe. Joyce Zeng was there.
The Taiyuan District Court has just released a former Vice Premier Cheng Wen-tsan, granting him bail a second time, which was set at over $360,000 US, more than double the first bail sum. Cheng has been accused of taking bribes while he was mayor of Taoyuan from 2014 to 2022. Now, this has become a battle of patience between prosecutors and the district court. Court insiders here tell me that prosecutors have already begun preparing to file a motion to appeal this release. They've done it already once before, successfully getting the High Court to overturn his release from Sunday. Now, as conditions of the bail, Cheng still cannot leave the country and cannot contact other suspects involved in the case. But prosecutors maintain that with other suspects still being held without bail, Cheng should be held to the same standard. They also say that releasing Cheng ignores the possibility of evidence tampering and collusion, a spiraling situation here for one of the biggest names in the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. Luffy Li, Eason Chen, and Joyce Zhen in Taoyuan for TaiwanPlus.
Preparations are underway for Taiwan's largest annual military exercises, which will kick off later this month. The Defense Ministry says this year's drills will test the military's capabilities like never before. Tiffany Wang reports.
你们在进行什么任务？
Donning fatigues, President Lai Ching-te greets members of Taiwan's Air Force in a promotional video for the country's military. It comes ahead of their biggest test yet. The annual Hanguang military exercises are Taiwan's largest drills and include a live fire component that takes place around the country. It's a chance for the military to practice mobilizing against its most significant threat, China. In a first for sitting president, Lai offered the officers and soldiers encouragement as they prepared, reminding them of the purpose of the drills.
追求和平更是我们始终坚持的方向。但我们要的和平是一个有稳固基础的和平，是要靠自己实力所建立起来的真和平，而这个基础就是我们自己防卫的力量。
The Hanguang exercises have been held for the past 40 years, and this year's drills are set to be among the most challenging yet, with the head of the military announcing they would be less scripted, a way to test troops' readiness in any situation.
依照共军的犯台可能行动，发展想定架构，置重点于军种联合作战以及夜战等科目，所有的国军部队都会演练这个去中心化直管。
Decentralized command is new to the Hanguang exercises and the Taiwanese military generally. It gives soldiers more autonomy in making real-time decisions. They'll also receive cards detailing the rules of engagement, which they can use to aid their decision-making during the exercise.
主要是规范可合法攻击的目标、使用武力所保护的对象，以及部队的特定任务的赋予等。
As China ramps up military activity in the Taiwan Strait, Taiwan also feels the need to strengthen its self-defense capabilities. And the Hanguang exercises will be a test of just that. Patrick Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
The port of Pearl Harbor in Honolulu is now almost completely empty as dozens of warships head out to the Western Pacific for live fire exercises. Our reporter Jaime Okan is in the Hawaiian capital and brings us this report.
I'm standing at the very edge of Pearl Harbor Navy Base in Hawaii. Roughly 40 ships participating in this year's RIMPAC exercises are getting ready to head out to sea. Now behind me is the largest of them, the USS Carl Vinson, and it's the only aircraft carrier taking part in the drill. The majority of these ships will spend about 2 weeks out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, conducting live fire exercises and learning to operate as one big team. One part of the at-sea phase will see the U.S. and allies try to sink an old warship to learn how much firepower is needed in a real-life conflict. But not all ships will be conducting military drills. Other vessels will focus on humanitarian and disaster relief around the Hawaiian Islands. The U.S. Navy said it did not have the ability to take media aboard, but we will be checking in on the warships as they come to port to rearm and regroup throughout this phase. Jaime Ocon in Honolulu, Hawaii for TaiwanPlus.
Stay tuned to TaiwanPlus for more coverage of the RIMPAC exercises in Hawaii. Police are still hunting for the gunman who shot dead the father of a Tainan city councilor. Ling Shijie was shot multiple times at close range as he walked out of his front door. Irene Lin has the latest.
A murder in broad daylight. Ling Shijie, chair of Tainan City Fishermen's Association, was shot and killed while leaving for his morning jog on Monday morning. Security camera footage shows the suspect waiting outside his home before shooting Lin as he stepped out onto his front porch. Police found 11 bullet casings at the scene and say Lin was hit 6 times.
且经本署检察官会同法医相验林姓死者后，发现死者颈部、胸腔、肩膀、手臂均有枪伤，初步研判死者颈部及胸腔中弹为致命伤。
His daughter Ling Yiting, a Tainan City councilor, is in shock.
没有，一切都非常的平凡，非常的正常，爸爸的作息都很正常，所以我们现在什么都不知道。
Police investigators think Lin's killing was planned. They found 2 cars used by the suspect nearby, one that was set on fire and another corroded by acid. Both vehicles were unregistered ghost cars, making it hard to track down the suspect. Evidence found in the cars, including the suspected murder weapon, was damaged.
初步来看是说是改造，但是我们不排除，因为这个也有可能是，就是还是要进行由刑事局来做鉴定之后，才能做一个明确的一个答复。
Tainan City Mayor Huang Weizhe was among those offering their condolences.
那但是我觉得，其实不管他的身份是理事长还是一般民众，我觉得都不应该他们的安全都应该受到政府的保障所以说我们要求警察局尽速来侦办。
Lin's former role as Democratic Progressive Party Executive Committee member has spurred suspicions that his murder was politically motivated. He was previously caught up in an election bribery scandal that involved Tainan's current city council speaker, Chiu Li. He had also run for city councilor before. But authorities say the motive remains unclear, focusing their efforts first on tracking down those behind this shocking murder. James Lin and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
Environmental groups are protesting an amendment that could extend the operating life of nuclear reactors. A legislative committee is discussing the amendment on Wednesday. If passed, it will remove a rule requiring plants to apply 5 years in advance to extend the life of their reactors. Activists say extending the operating license raises safety concerns and should not be done without public discussion. Taiwan's ruling party plans to phase out nuclear power by next year, but issues of energy security have led to opposition to this goal. Taiwan's intelligence chief has reported an uptick in Taiwanese nationals detained in China since Beijing implemented new security laws. National Security Bureau head Tsai Ming-yen says 15 Taiwanese people have been detained in China and 51 been questioned at a border since July last year. In a speech, he linked the rise to 2 Chinese security laws which came into effect on May 1st. He warned that Taiwanese working in security or tech and those active in groups critical of China face a greater risk of arrest. Tsai also told Taiwanese fishers to be on alert after China's Coast Guard detained a fishing boat last week. The law for recalling politicians is the latest source of strife in Taiwan's legislature. All 3 parties in the chamber want changes, and their disagreements have turned violent. Lawmakers are now digging in along party lines. Cheng Wen-tsan reports.
Debate gives way to blows as partisan differences boil over. This time, it's the system Taiwan uses to recall politicians that started the fight, all before a proposal to change the system even leaves committee. Right now, a simple majority in favor of a recall is all it takes to pass one. It's a policy Taiwan's leading opposition party, the Kuomintang, wants changed. They say politicians should only lose their jobs if the number of votes to recall them surpasses the number of votes that voted them in. This proposal comes as Xie Guoliang, the Kuomintang mayor of Keelung, faces a recall vote. It also follows mass protests against the party's push for legislative reform, something that could lead to even more recall votes against party members.
我们依然会依法来持续的进行，绝对不让这些幽灵人口成为民进党的人头，肆意的罢免在野党的县市长或是国会议员。
The ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, opposes the move. So far, the smaller of the two opposition parties, the Taiwan People's Party, is staying out of the fight. Party members have said they oppose higher thresholds, but would like to make recall petition signers provide photocopies of their national ID cards.
必须让联署过程严谨，避免罢免变成政治动员的工具。
The bitter turn the debate has taken leaves little sign of consensus, and the proposal to change the law is still just in committee, meaning a bigger political battle could still be ahead. Scott Huang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
For a closer look at attempts to change Taiwan's recall law, John Van Trieste spoke to political analyst Courtney Donovan-Smith.
Has recalling been a highly effective tool in Taiwanese politics in recent years?
One pattern that I've noticed here is that the candidates who, or the politicians who have been successfully recalled, are those that have been very polarizing people. Candidates who maybe they have opinions which are outside of the mainstream, but that tend to carry themselves in a more cooperative and friendly and sort of peaceful manner, they're more ingratiating on their social media accounts. They post up a lot of content where they are posing with constituents and, showing their concern. Those failed.
How do you account for the different parties' positions on this recall issue, given that the main parties have had their candidates recalled in recent years, and that next time around it could be a useful tool to knock out an opponent?
Well, this appears to be possibly related to calls by the Bluebird movement to try and recall a series of KMT lawmakers so they lose their legislative plurality. That's what the theory is by the political opponents of the KMT. The KMT would say that the bar has been set too low and that they're rectifying this problem.
Do you see, given the bitterness of the debate, this even getting past the committee at all?
A lot of this is going to depend on the Taiwan People's Party. According to them, they do not support the changes to the threshold that the KMT is proposing. They disagree with that part. But the Taiwan People's Party does want to put in more requirements to identify the people who are signing on. In other words, more documentation to prove their identity. Now, the big question will be, if the KMT can get this out of committee and to a vote, then if the TPP abstains, they could pull this off. If the TPP actively votes against it, then it will fail.
That was political analyst Courtney Donovan-Smith speaking to John Van Trieste. Taiwan's athletes are heading to Paris for the Olympic Games later this month. Earlier today, President Lai Ching-te presented Team Taiwan with the country's Olympic flag and wished them well as they get ready to compete with the world's best. Leslie Liao reports from Kaohsiung.
The Paris Olympics will begin in less than 3 weeks, and Taiwan will be there. The country is sending a team of 60 athletes to compete in 16 sports like judo, weightlifting, boxing, and more. Taiwan's Olympians will travel to France over the next few weeks. President Lai Ching-te presented the athletes with the country's team flag at the National Sports Training Center in Kaohsiung before they head out. He said that the athletes have the power to unite the country.
大家的表现 也是为国人所关注，凝聚国家团结的力量。
The flag Taiwan will take to the Olympics is not the country's official flag. Rather, it's the flag of the Olympic Committee. The country's athletes also won't be competing under the name Taiwan. Instead, they'll compete under the name Chinese Taipei. That was decided under an agreement reached with the International Olympic Committee back in the 1980s. Any attempt to compete as Taiwan would likely be resisted by China, which says Taiwan is part of its sovereign territory and objects to any symbols of Taiwanese statehood. Taiwan had its best Olympic performance ever at the last Summer Games in Tokyo, taking home 12 medals, including 2 gold. Now, this year's team is slightly smaller than that team, but these athletes are just as prepared to vie for Olympic glory in Paris. Howard Zhang and Leslie Liao in Kaohsiung for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, TaiwanPlus sits down with Edwin Liu, the head of the country's top research institute at the heart of the high-tech innovation in Taiwan.
This month's top hits on TaiwanPlus.
Let's go. Let's go to Chinese Taipei. Where is it?
Why is Taiwan called Chinese Taipei in international sports? Dive into the complex origins with athletes and experts.
People feel like we are Taiwanese.
It's the music that tells you to be yourself.
Taiwan's indie music scene is calling to you. Time to take Taiwan's musicians to the world.
Delicious plant-based dining in Taiwan.
An elevating vegetarian experience. Join Aggie Xie on Veggie Island to savor Taiwan's diverse dishes.
Hi, I'm Kevin. Welcome to Whirlwind Trip.
Hop on Whirlwind Trip to discover all the fun Taiwan has to offer around the clock.
An exhilarating journey full of culture, discovery, and unforgettable moments.
Vibrant and original programs, exclusively on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Moscow for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. It's his first visit to Russia since it invaded Ukraine. Rosie Greninger reports.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi touches down in Moscow as he seeks to shore up ties with Russia in the face of its blossoming relationship with China. The newly re-elected Indian leader is on a 2-day trip where he's set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss trade, energy and security.
The 22nd annual summit between India and Russia would provide an opportunity to the two leaders to review the whole range of bilateral issues.
Modi is looking to maintain trade ties with Russia, from whom it now gets 40% of its oil. Russian oil prices dropped when the country was isolated by the imposition of Western sanctions after its invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. But with Indian exports to Russia dwindling, India's Foreign Secretary says reducing the trade imbalance will be a priority. Geopolitical analysts believe that Modi will also seek Moscow's support in India's territorial disputes with China. The two countries share a border in the Himalayan region.
I think it's in India's interest to try to drive a wedge between that and try to keep Russia closer to them.
Modi and Putin are also expected to implement a military logistics agreement to pave the way for more arms exchanges between their countries. With the NATO summit just a day away, for Putin, this visit will be an important signal that he still has powerful friends in the international community.
He has to kind of signal to his domestic audience that world leaders are coming to see him. He's not so isolated.
But the US, a vital NATO member, has raised concerns about India's relationship with Russia, pressuring Modi to break his neutrality and take a stand on the Ukraine war.
We would hope India and any other country, when they engage with Russia, would make clear that Russia should respect the UN Charter, should respect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Whether or not Ukraine is discussed, from Russia, Modi will travel next to Vienna, which has spoken out against Russian aggression. It'll be the first visit to Austria by an Indian leader since 1983. as the Prime Minister juggles courting closer ties with Western nations and maintaining a long-standing relationship with Moscow. John Su and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Russia has carried out a series of missile strikes across Ukraine, killing at least 37 people and hitting a children's hospital. The hospital in Kiev was one of more than 100 buildings across 5 cities damaged in the strikes, which President Volodymyr Zelensky has called brutal. More than 170 people have been injured. Russia has denied targeting the hospital, saying it was hit by fragments of a Ukrainian air defense missile. The rare daytime strikes come just a day before this year's NATO summit in Washington, D.C., where the war in Ukraine and a country's potential NATO membership are expected to be the focus. Severe floods in northern Bangladesh have left at least 8 people dead and more than 2 million stranded. Weeks of heavy rains have caused riverbanks to burst, breaking bridges and dams and devastating low-lying areas. The government has opened hundreds of shelters for the displaced people. The region's annual monsoon season is expected to last until September and will bring more rainfall than usual because of climate change. One of Taiwan's top research institutes is celebrating its 51st anniversary. All this week on TaiwanPlus, we're taking an inside look at what it does and some of its cutting-edge innovations. Dr. Edwin Liu spent over 30 years in the United States as an electrical engineer. In 2018, Taiwan's cabinet appointed him president of the Industrial Technology Research Institute. He manages thousands of employees and helps to plan out Taiwan's technological future. Leslie Liao went to Hsinchu to find out more about how he manages these tasks.
What's it like to manage 6,000 employees, supervise research across dozens of disciplines, and help guide a country's technological development? That's a question Dr. Edwin Liu faces every day. He's the president of Taiwan's Industrial Technology Research Institute, or ITRI. Liu is an electrical engineer by trade. He lived in the United States for over 30 years, working at companies like Nexant, Quanta, and Bechtel. He has experience in the tech, power, and artificial intelligence sectors, and returned to Taiwan in 2018 to take up the post.
I think that's the kind of opportunities. You cannot plan for it, right?
At a time when people are questioning whether Taiwan's energy supply can handle the country's ambitious AI and tech development goals, Liu seems uniquely qualified to face these challenges head on.
Over the past 50 years, at each stage of the Taiwan's economic growth, each played different roles. Depends on what we need to do to help the government and help the industry.
ITRI has thousands of scientists and dozens of laboratories and researches everything from textiles to biomedicine to green energy and beyond. Some of these subjects go well beyond the scope of Liu's expertise, but he says problem solving is a universal scientific language.
You don't have to know every single detail, but you have to know how to put things together, and that's the key.
One problem affecting Liu is Taiwan's low birth rate and the resulting labor shortage. ITRI needs highly skilled, well-trained workers, and it competes with the higher-paying private sector for that talent. Liu says he doesn't want to attract people with higher salaries, but rather flexibility and the opportunity to grow a career.
We provide a growth opportunity, so that you fresh out of school, you can grow different discipline in a different area. For the experienced people, we provide sufficient freedom for them.
As ITRI's president, Liu is often tapped as an advisor to help guide Taiwan's technological advancement. Liu believes having a long-term goal isn't enough. Concrete plans are needed, and those must be revisited and refreshed often.
We built the 2030 strategy and roadmap, and then just last year we refreshed it, become 2035 technology strategy and roadmap.
With over half his life spent in the United States, Liu admits that moving back to Taiwan took some getting used to.
I have never worked in Taiwan, so that's the number one culture shock. Number two, I have been in the private sectors. and coming to this semi-government organization has to deal with a lot of the government policies.
But he says being E3 president is an act of service to Taiwan. He wants to share his years of valuable experience with his home country.
My passion to help Taiwan, that's very important. And I also like to share my experience with the whatever I learned in US to kind of make E3 a better organization.
Liu is now in his 7th year as E3 president. With a focus on long-term planning and problem solving, he's solidifying Taiwan's reputation as a leader in high tech. Devin Tsai, Scott Huang, and Leslie Liao in Hsinchu for TaiwanPlus.
Tune in all this week as TaiwanPlus News takes an in-depth look at ITRI's research and innovations. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, take a look at scenes of people playing in the snow in South Africa after 2 cold fronts hit the country. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.
For more stories from here in Hengchun, Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.